Kind of using the checkered flag as a symbol today of talking about winning. And we are destined to win. And I don't know about you, but you kind of look at the news, you look at things going on around us, and we just see so many things changing, a lot of times for the worse, and we can get really discouraged about it. As a pastor, one of the things that I'm constantly doing, I'm trying to read and study and understand what's going on in our world around us, to understand the trends of things, and how do we as the church, how do we represent Jesus to the world around us? And I think the last 6 months, I've been really diving into this, and so what I'm sharing today is a lot of thoughts and things that's been in my mind and heart over the last few months, thinking about who we are as Christians, who we are as the church. And so I'm kind of coming to you as a pastor in a sermon, but also kind of like a coach, and be able to say, let's really think about who we are and where we're going as a congregation, as people who are disciples of Jesus, because we are destined to win in this whole thing, and so we're glad for that. The reality is, church is God's plan A in revealing the incarnation of Jesus to the world. Let's break that down here. This is a truth that's all through the scriptures here, that the church, God's people, not the building itself, but God's people, is God's plan A. Okay? The fact is, that's his only plan. He doesn't have a plan B, but it's his plan A to reveal the incarnation of Jesus to the world. That word incarnation, you're going, okay, what's that mean? It's one of those theological words. It means in the body of. We are like in the body of Christ, and we're revealing him to the world around us. Because when he left this world, he said, I'm giving you the Spirit, my Spirit, and so that you can be like little Jesus, little Christ, going around throughout the world, and you will do the things that I did. In fact, you'll do greater things than me. Jesus said that we would do greater things than he would do. And I look at my life and go, well, I don't know that they would write 4 books of the Bible about my life, because it's not that great. But the fact is, the fact that we are human, the fact that we are sinners, but God can come into our story and rearrange our life and make us useful for him, that's pretty great. We may not do greater things in our eyes than Jesus did, but in his eyes, he said what we're doing for him is even greater than what he did. That's pretty something, that God would trust us to be his plan A for reaching the world. That's pretty cool. Now, you all look like you're asleep, and I don't know. I thought this was really exciting, and maybe it's just you're so thinking about it that you're just in a trance about it. But isn't that exciting that God thinks that you're his plan A for reaching the world? Doesn't that give you a reason to get up in the morning, to be able to say, I can be the incarnation of Jesus today with my family, with my friends, as I go to work, as I play ball, as I go to school, wherever we do. We can be his plan A, and that's what today is about. So the smiles are on your face now. So, okay, you're awake. That's good. I want to make sure we're connecting here today. I don't want to waste the next 20 minutes here. So we're connecting. That's good. So our passage for today that we just read in 2 Corinthians 3, 2 and 3, Paul's reminding the church. He says, you yourselves are our letter of recommendation, written on our hearts to be known and read by all. Paul's saying, man, when I think of you, you're out there passing on what I gave to you. And I can trust you with that, as imperfect as they were. And you show that you're a letter from Christ, delivered by us, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts. I pray that today that God has written his life on your heart, and that your heart is filled with his Spirit. And maybe you're here today and you don't have that, but if you don't have that, we can get that. Because Jesus says, I'm giving you my grace as a gift. I'm giving you my love as a gift. What I did on the cross wasn't just some great martyrdom for mankind. It was to give you life, to take your spirit and make it new. And he could do that in your life. Through faith and repentance in him, we can come to him, and so that our lives can be like that letter for him. If you were to do a Yahoo search, this won't work on Google because things don't come up the same way, but Yahoo has the thing, if you put in the word, it'll fill in the blank and give you options. And I don't know if you can read this from up here, but if you put in, why are Christians so, it's going to give you these options. Why are Christians, and these are like the top searches. Why are Christians so hateful? Why are Christians so judgmental? Why are Christians so stupid? Why are Christians so mean? Why are Christians so intolerant? Why are Christians so annoying? Why are Christians so self-righteous? And the list goes on. These are the top searches. Why aren't people saying, why are Christians so loving? Why are Christians so kind? Why are Christians so truthful? Why are Christians the light of the world? Why are Christians so representing Jesus? People aren't putting in those Yahoo Google searches, are they? They're asking, why are Christians? We got a reputation problem, don't we, in the world today? People see us as that. Now, I don't think that we're all like that, but there's a perception problem, and a lot of people think that we are. Labels are a big deal today, aren't they? I mean, it's gotten to the extreme. You know, we're labeled this, we're labeled that, and whatever your label is comes with a whole package that you're like stuck with. And even being a Christian today, I feel like that has kind of a big, heavy label on it in the world's eyes. We get a lot of bad press. We have a bad reputation in many ways. If you were to take a survey in the United States today, and they do these religious surveys, and they'll say, what is your religion, what is your religious affiliation? There'll be all kinds of answers, and at the bottom it always says none, for people who don't have any religious affiliation today. If you were to take this today, this is where we're at. 23% of the United States will answer none, which is pretty equal with two other groups right up there, aren't there? Of the Catholics and the evangelicals. We would be evangelicals, okay? Is what we would be here. People that really embrace the gospel of Jesus Christ and want other people to be able to embrace it as well. That's this very simple definition there. You've got 14 that are other, and then 11% who are mainline Protestants. These are other churches that are out there that wouldn't call themselves so much evangelical because they're pretty liberal in their theology. But that's how the United States breaks down right now. You know, we talk about being a Christian nation. Well, the Christian part of the adjective on nation is shrinking, and the nones are growing. In fact, in the last 30 years, that category of none has risen 266% of people who will say, I have no religious affiliation at all. So when we take a look at the people that are out there, that's kind of what we're looking at today. And if you're with me, you find yourself in category number 3 in the middle, you find that we're running neck to neck with some other groups. And nothing against the Catholics. We love our Catholics. They're great. They're Christians. They follow what we have here, and we're teaching. They do some things a little differently, but we're going to group them together as brothers and sisters today, just for the sake of argument here. But the other group, nuns, is growing very, very large. And that's something that we need to be aware of, and to be aware that this is a trend that keeps increasing more and more and more. And so therefore, we kind of wake up and we go, what's going on in our country? Things are different. Things are changing. Why is being a Christian being a bad guy anymore? I mean, do you kind of feel like that in a way? Like if you're a Christian, you feel like you have to defend yourself, you know, because now you're like on the wrong side of history. You know, I mean, I'm a pastor, I'm a parent, I'm a follower of Jesus, and I'm trying to figure out myself how to be able to be a Christian in light of where culture is these days. And life is looking a lot more like it did in the New Testament, when Christians were not very popular, when Christians were the bad guys back then. And it went to the extent that if you were a Christian, you could even be martyred. You could be killed for that, because that was against the law. Now, hopefully it'll never come to that, but there are more and more laws being passed that put a lot of pressure on us, don't they? That's kind of happening little by little. We don't know where it's going, but as more and more nuns grow, if that continues to grow and the amount of Christians comes less, then it's possible that we may see some of the things that we saw in Bible times or what we see in other parts of the world. Not trying to be a doomsday prophet here, but just saying these are some of the trends, and we need to be aware and to see what's going on. You know, it's easy to get afraid. You know, I'm afraid for my kids, for this generation. You know, what are they growing up into? What are going to be their challenges that they have as followers of Jesus? You know, I'm afraid of a government that might take away more of our religious freedoms. You know, those are very big concerns that we have. You know, I'm afraid that we're going to put this roof on the church. It's going to last for 60 years, but nobody's going to be here in generations to come to be able to use the roof. I mean, you know, we want to be able to have a building that is going to continue for God's work for future generations. But are they going to be here if the trends continue and the amount of Christians shrink? I hope they don't. Maybe God will send a revival and things will we've hit bottom and now we're going to go up. And we need to pray for that. We need to pray for our young people. We need to pray for those nuns out there. We need to pray for our society so that they would see the Spirit of God in us and say, I want that. I want that relationship with God that these people have, because that's missing in my life. And that's what we need to do, is pray for that. We need to work for that. We need to have the sanctuary be a safe place. That's what sanctuary means, as a safe place. It's where we come to worship God, but it's a safe, holy place to come together and worship Him. And we need each other. We can't stand alone out there because our culture is getting fractured and we can't do it on our own very well. We need each other as the body of Christ. Over the last few years, we developed this joint youth ministry around town, KOYO, a combined youth ministry, taking little youth groups from around town and any kids who want to get to be a part of it. And it's turned out to be a really positive thing. And one of the great things about KOYO is, and any of the leaders here will tell you, nobody talks about, well, we're Methodist kids, we're Catholic kids, we're from the First Christian Church, we're from Walnut Grove, nobody talks about that. There are no divisions amongst the leaders, amongst the kids. I mean, we're here in the name of Christ. And it's turned out to be a beautiful example of unity. Does everything go perfectly in KOYO? No, things get messed up and we get problems we've got to work through and stuff. But as far as having the identity as followers of Jesus coming together in unity, man, that's working like top notch. And the kids are going, well, why don't the other people do this in town? I mean, they're asking us, why do we have all these little church buildings and everybody goes and they do things just slightly different from each other? And why can't we all be like this? And as adults, we're going, well, it's because, they're onto something. I think what we're going to see in the future is a generation that says, all these petty little differences that historically divided us, I think we're going to drop those things and we're going to kind of come together. It could be in the future there's only going to be 1 or 2 churches in town, because we're going to come together and we're going to be the Christians in Arcola. Now, what building we meet in, I don't know, and that doesn't really matter, but they see themselves as the body of Christ. They're picking up on something that we can learn from. Wouldn't you say? You young people, am I saying what reflects your heart? Okay? That's where we're at. So for us in the older generations, I think we need to learn from them and listen to them and go, how can we partner together? I'm not saying we close all our doors and we become one big church tomorrow. I mean, that's not that easy, But there's a spirit, there's an atmosphere that God is at work, even in this community, to try to bring about something even better than what we have now. And how can we partner with other churches? How can we come together and not see ourselves as different buildings, different walls, different little nuances, but how can we come together in a spirit of unity to see the gospel of Jesus Christ get spread near and far? I think we're onto something here, and we'll be interested to see how the future plays out in that. So one of the things that we do together is that we work on the SWAT, this lunchtime that we have at the school. The First Christian Church hosts it for the junior high, and the Walnut Grove Church hosts it for the high schoolers. Once a week, we come in with pizza and pop, and we have a Christian-based lunchtime. And it's great because 1 out of 5 kids at our school attend that, and that's pretty awesome. And they do it voluntarily. And they're not just there for the pizza; they're there for the conversations that take place. I mean, you only have a half an hour for lunch, so it's not like we're going deep in a spiritual sense. But we do offer something that helps them, and they come together there, and that's a really cool thing. But last week we had our last SWAT with the junior hires, and I handed out a little survey to get their feedback on what we could do better next year and stuff. And I asked some questions on there, and I don't know if you can see this. But there was a male in 7th grade, and when he answered the question, I attend church, often, sometimes, rarely, or never, he circles never. And can you see what he wrote in next to that? Sadly. We have a 7th grade boy at our school who says, sadly, I don't attend church. And why do you attend SWAT? Because my parents won't take me to church. This is really my only way. I mean, this is like the only spiritual connection he has. And for some reason, you can tell this really connects to him. He's hungry. He's not there for pizza. He's there for a spiritual connection because he doesn't have parents that take him to church. Maybe they don't have a church. Maybe he asked. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. He's in 7th grade. 7th grade boys are kind of funny about things. But, he's hungry. And sometimes we think, are we doing any good coming out here every week and serving the pizza and doing these talks? And you get little moments like this and you're like, okay, we're doing something. We're doing something in our community that's making a difference, at least in somebody's life. But then it makes me sad too, because I'm like, this kid never goes to church. Okay, I got to find out who this kid is. I mean, this was all anonymous, so I got to figure out who it is. Like, I need to get into my church, but I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And I don't think he would necessarily come to my church if I invited him. But I know 2 7th grade boys who sit at his table who do go to a church. They go to the same church, not this church. And so I texted them and I said, hey, one of your classmates wrote this. He wants to go to church. It sounds like to me, maybe you could figure out who it is and invite him to church. And one of them wrote back and said, oh yeah, I know the handwriting. I know who that is exactly. And I don't know if I'm being deceitful here and going behind this kid's back, but I want him to be able to connect it. And I wrote him and I wrote his parents and I said, can you guys take this kid to church? And one of the moms wrote back and said, yes, we'll definitely reach out to this kid and, we'll do this and stuff. And so we're part of the kingdom of God. And yeah, I would love for him to come to my church, and I know I get paid to get people to come to my church, but as a citizen of the kingdom of God, I want him to go somewhere, and I want him to go where his friends go, because he'll go with them. He won't come with me probably. And I still don't even know who it is. They just said, yeah, we know who it is, and I don't even know who it is yet. But it's an example of how we need to work together. I don't care if he comes to my church or the church down the street, or in this case, it's a church out of town. Let him go. Let him get fed. Let him go with his friends. And I think you get where I'm coming at here. We need to be a part of something bigger than just ourselves. And as we work together the way Christ wants us to, we can see more and more people reached with the gospel of Jesus Christ. We just had a new housing development built this winter, and Carrie and I went out to deliver some of these little welcome baskets. And we got to about half of the homes out there by the time it was all said and done. We went up to one home, and a lady came to the door, and she was probably in her 60s, maybe, I would say. She came to the door, and this is how we always start off. I would say, hi, my name's Brent, and this is Carrie. We're from the First Christian Church in town, and we want to welcome you to the neighborhood. And then Carrie would be holding the basket, and she'd say, we put together a little welcome basket, a few things you could maybe use, in your home, and we just like to give you this gift to say thanks for being here. And so the lady took the gift, took the basket, and then all of a sudden she started to hand it back, and she said, well, and her words were, I'm a Mormon, and you'd probably rather give this to somebody else who deserves it more than I do. And we're like, and Carrie's like, no, we want you to have it. We don't care if you're a Mormon or not. Now it's a cult, they don't teach the truth of God. But she's still worthy of the love of God. She's worthy of a welcome basket, And we're like, no, we want you to have it. And she was very touched by that. Because obviously in her life, Christians have given her a hard time because she's a Mormon. Church, she's wrong. She's deceived. Okay? But she's also hurt. Because Christians have probably been like that Yahoo search. They've been mean to her or something. Because obviously she thought we wanted nothing to do with her. She was a leper for as far as she was concerned. But she reached out and took the basket. And we're hoping that helped melt her heart a little bit towards the truth of the Lord. Just little ways to be able to do that. There's an older gentleman that just moved to town very recently. And if you want to take the stereotype of a grouchy old man, this is a grouchy old man, okay? He hates the world, he hates everybody, he hates God. He doesn't want anything to do with anybody, and we've had a couple conversations. I mean, he is just the grouchiest old, yeah, okay? His heart is very closed, and I'm thinking, he needs the Lord. He needs the Lord. And I'm going to keep going back, Probably I'm going to drive him crazy, but I'm going to reach out to him in love, because he needs the Lord. And these are our neighbors. The 7th grade boy, this Mormon lady, this grouchy old man. These are our neighbors, and I'm sure they're not the only 3 in Arcola that need the Lord. We got people around us that need Him, and you can think of who they are yourself. And God wants to use us as His letter to reach out to them. And we have so many opportunities to be able to do that, because the church is still God's plan A, and he wants us to do that. You know, unfortunately, the reason we haven't been out there reaching souls for Christ, one of the reasons is because we're so worried about the culture war. We're so worried about, you know, all the things that are going on in the world, and we're trying to change it and stand against it, and we're almost like paralyzed. We're like, everything's changing, and all the Christian values that used to be here are changing now and disappearing, and you know, we're worried about being the bad guy, that sometimes we're just paralyzed and we feel like we can't move on. But the reality is we've already lost the culture war, so we don't really need to fight it anymore. I mean, definitely we don't give up and we don't tuck our tails and go run and hide in a corner, but we stand strong and we reach out to this person, to that person, to this person with the love of God, so that we can change the reputation of Christians. It's not about what we're against, but it's about what we're for. And if we can fight about what we're for, the love of God, the mercy of God, the grace of God, the forgiveness of God, and we can spread that to the people around us, I think we're going to give Christianity a good name. We're going to introduce people to the Lord. Maybe they have a bad reputation. Maybe God has a bad reputation too. Like I say, this old guy, he hates God too, you know? But we can change that. And the Spirit of God can change that through us. If we think about where we've been at culturally, this is something I learned at a conference that was so helpful, and I'm trying to show it to you here. Just stick with the past column now, okay? There are basically 4 different groups of people. There are convictional Christians. These are Christians that live by their convictions. You know, they're really, they know what they believe, and they stand on it, and they live it out the best of their ability that God gives them as they go through day to day. Underneath that, you have cultural Christians. These are people that they come to church, they're Christians, but they kind of live it on Sunday, but then Monday through Saturday they kind of forget about God. And you wouldn't really know by working with them or going to school with them that they're even Christians. You wouldn't even know that. That's the cultural Christians. The congregational Christians are the ones that come on Christmas and Easter. Okay? They're connected to a church for weddings and funerals, that kind of stuff, but they're not really connected. And then you've got the nuns down there that we talked about earlier, okay? The nuns that aren't. And in the past, you had 3 groups of people, and that line in between was the cultural divide. It was the gap. And whether you were a convictional Christian, cultural Christian, or congregational Christian, you still kind of had the same set of values. You still kind of believed in the same things, and you kind of saw eye to eye on things for the most part. But the people that were nuns, they were very different, you know? They had very different values, different morals, different ways of looking at the world. But now what's happened is that cultural divide has moved up between the first 2 categories. The convictional Christians still have their set of values, but the ones who are cultural and congregational Christians have tended to kind of adapt to the nuns. Okay? They've kind of gone that way. And so therefore, the culture that has become less supported, or it's become supported by less people because of where it's divided up there. That's kind of where we're at now. But in the future, pretty much the cultural Christian, congregational Christian are going to kind of disappear. You know, they're just kind of blend into the nuns. That's what the statisticians are telling us, that they see that happening. Unless God turns it all around and brings more people into convictional Christian. But actually, in a way, it's good, because cultural Christian and congregational Christian, that's kind of like being a little wishy-washy. So, you know, just like God said, make up your mind one way or another, right? So the convictional Christian in the future will kind of be the group. But as we can see, the cultural divide has changed. And when we're sitting back going, why don't all these people see eye to eye with me anymore? Why does everything turn into an argument? It's because the cultural divide has changed, and it's not where it was before. And the Christian values that have typically been a part of our country, not that our country's been perfect, we've totally had our blind spots, and we've missed a lot of things when it comes to our spiritual values. But in general, a lot of the spiritual values that you find in the Bible have been characteristic of our culture through all the years. But those things are changing as the cultural divide has moved. So I hope that kind of makes sense. It helps me understand the world I live in a little bit better, just understanding that there. Most people aren't necessarily rejecting the gospel of Jesus because they don't know the gospel, they don't know the truth about Jesus, but because Christians and churches have got such a bad reputation, they kind of throw it all out together. Back in 1804, I love this illustration. Thomas Jefferson commissioned the first American expedition to reach the Pacific Ocean. And he sent two people to be in charge of that, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. We know them we know them as Lewis and Clark. They were given the commission to go from the East Coast out west and kind of explore their way to the Pacific Ocean. And so they started out in canoes. They're going across the plains in canoes. Makes sense, doesn't it? Well, when they got to the mountains, what happened? Those canoes weren't very helpful anymore, were they? And they had to change their method to get across those mountains. What would be a great way to get across the mountains back in 1804? What would you need? Horses? Yeah, okay. So they needed horses, so they bartered with the Indians and got some horses, and they continued the rest of their journey over the mountains to the Pacific Ocean on horses. Did their mission change? No. Did the goal change? No. But how they got there did change, because they realized it was a different terrain. You can get across the prairies in a canoe very easily, but you get to the mountains and the canoe's not going to help you there. And so we have some hurdles to cross as Christians. Okay? That means we don't change the goal, we don't change the mission, but we change our mode of transportation, how to get there. And that's kind of what we've been doing, even in our congregation over the last few years. We've been kind of changing the way that we do some things so that we can be more attractional, that people would see our lives and our church and go, we think that's a pretty good group of people over there. And I think we got a pretty good reputation in town. From what I hear, I think we do. But we need to keep thinking, how do we keep changing our mode of transportation? How do we get there? The last thing I want to talk about here real quickly is just the fact that we have in our lives today, in our church, in our lives, we have 5 cultural generations of people, okay? And I was just talking with somebody about this before the services. We're talking about grandkids, okay? We have 5 generations of people, and you in here are in one of those 5 generations of people here. We've got on the left side the builders, that were all people that were born before World War II. They value hard work, old-fashioned values, home, taking care of the house and having a home that's there. Those are great things, and they really are very self-sufficient, and you see these people in their 80s and 90s, and man, they're going to get up and do it themselves, aren't they? For those of you that are builders out there, it's an amazing generation, You're going to keep energizing Bunny until the end, right? So we've got that generation that's still alive today. Then we've got the baby boomers. These dates are always, give or take a few years, from the mid-40s to the mid-60s. This was a generation that grew up with, hey, our parents were from the Depression era. We're going to have opportunities. We're going to make things of our lives, We're going to go out there and work, get a good job. We have prosperity. We have malls to go buy things. We have rock and roll music. We got our own music now. That's when that was the generation that the teenagers became a subculture in and of itself, It's a generation that took the good from the builders and threw out the bad and said, we're going to build something better. And they did. They built a great generation of baby boomers. And that's many of you in here that are in that generation. And then you get Gen X, kind of from the mid-60s to about 1980. Then it became those parents were able to provide for their kids, and so it was about brands, That's when the commercialization of things became really big, and you had to have the right label on everything that you own, because if you go to school in the wrong kind of jeans, then you're going to be made fun of. That's my generation there. Okay, grew up with MTV, latchkey. Parents started working to provide better things for their kids, and so so that generation they're dealing with balance. How do we balance it all? That generation is struggling with that. Then you get the millennials from about the 80s up to close to 2000. That's the generation that first grew up with technology. I mean, think about all the household things that changed during that era. Think about how computers started out. Email, that was like a big deal way back when. Our kids now go, email, what's that? Why do we do that? But that was a big deal. The globalization, the world became smaller. We're interconnected now. That was the generation where everybody got trophies. Everybody won. Everybody's made to be a winner, right? And that generation, they really value flexibility. It's almost like they're paralyzed. All of a sudden, the world had a million choices. And now where do we go with all those choices? So it's hard to pick out what I'm going to do with my life, where I'm going to work, who I'm going to marry, who I'm going to settle down. That's a hard thing for that generation. Then you got Gen Z, the generation that's coming up now. These younger ones that are here today, you're part of this, and we're still learning about you guys. So we do know that you've grown up with Google, YouTube, all this stuff is smartphones. You've had them rounding you your whole life. You didn't have to go to a computer to sit down and do it. You got it right with you. They've also seen how things are breaking down. There's so much disunity, and that's their world right now. And they're really looking for stability. I think that seems to be, the sociologists are telling us, that generation saying, life's pretty fragmented, it's pretty crazy, and so we really want stability here. But we've got 5 generations, okay? And you can see them in your family. You can see them with people you work with. And we have it in the church as well. How do we do church for 5 different generations of people so that it connects with all of them? And some churches have found a niche, and we're going to reach this generation. And they do everything so that it's just perfect for that generation. And other churches like us is like we're trying to reach everybody. And so everybody gives up a little bit, of their preferences because we honor each other. We love each other. And sometimes some things we do here is a little old-fashioned, some things are really modern. We do a little bit of both, and we hope not to lose anybody in that, but we're trying to reach. This is the challenge that we have in our society, and churches have. And a lot of churches have fallen behind, and people look at churches and go, "Oh, they're too old-fashioned," or they don't connect with me. And so we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, but we need to be able to repackage how we do things and find a place that all 5 of our generations can come together. So anyway, we don't want to compromise what we believe. We're not about tickling people's ears. We're not going to give out free pizza just to fill up the place. That's not what it's about. It's not about consumerism. It's not about just saying, well, everybody wants this, so we're going to give them that. It's about being able to connect. How can we take the things of God and connect with the people around us in society? That's our challenge as the church. How do we connect as individuals and as a body, as we come together for worship and the things that we do? And we have to kind of measure church not by necessarily how many people are in the pews every Sunday, but we measure church by how much of an impact we have when we leave these pews. How are we having an impact? And that is church as well. And we have to start counting in that way, not just numbers on Sunday morning. So 2 Corinthians 3, 2-3 again. You yourselves are a letter of recommendation. You're written on our hearts to be known and read by all. And you show that you are a letter from Christ, delivered by us, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts. So as your life is a letter, you have the love and the truth of God, just go out there and let people read it. If they can't read, then you need to read it to them, okay? And we do that as we serve them, as we love them, as we share the truth. The people might not come to your church, they may not read a Bible, but they might read you, and they'll come and hang out with you, and you can be that representation to them. Remember, church is God's plan A in revealing the incarnation of Jesus to the world. And that's what we're going to do individually. We're going to do it together, support each other. If you have ideas how we can do that better, man, come talk to me. I'm all about trying new things. If you've got some ideas how we could help reach people out there as a church, throw your ideas my way. I'd be glad to talk over with you on how to be able to do that, because I think we got a great thing going, and I think we can have even a greater thing going for the Lord. So as we go into communion today, let's sing this song, this hymn, Here I Am, Lord. This is a response of saying, yes, I'm going to go and I'm going to do and I'm going to speak and be who you want me to be.